You talked about beach cleanups. It's a bit different with COVID, isn't it? So how has that kind of forced you to change your approach with things?
Well, the interesting thing is our campaign actually started because of COVID. So I think that's just the first part that's actually really interesting. It started when we were at home and we got to participate in the Ocean Heroes Bootcamp. So for the first 8 months of our campaign, actually, we were running it during COVID, which was really interesting. So how that basically got us to change things, especially during cleanups, was we had to limit the amount of people that could be at our cleanups. Like you couldn't have these large cleanups with over 1,000 people. You always had to make sure that you weren't going over 100. Then of course we had to do stuff like maintain social distancing, make sure you have sanitizer, make sure everyone is wearing a mask, make sure everyone is cleaning with gloves and stuff like that. So basically, in terms of following the COVID protocols, it made sure that because our campaign was running during COVID, if you want to do anything, you have to follow the protocols and make sure everyone stays safe. And in other ways, actually, it got us to rethink a lot of our approaches because we recently held the NAM Lolwe Youth Summit, or NALIS for short, and we partnered with Green Speaking to do it, and we got to engage. It was a hybrid summit that engaged over 200 youth from 4 continents around the theme of reconnecting young people to nature. So as you were doing it, when we were planning it, actually, we were already thinking about COVID because we knew like there's a pandemic. So that's actually what made us decide to make the summit hybrid, because if you want to have a proper event, you can't be like, we want people to come in from Nairobi and from places like Nairobi or Homa Bay, and then you also want to bring in people from other countries. That would have been a bit difficult with restrictions. So we decided, why don't you make it that the people in Kisumu can attend in person, and then people from everywhere else can attend virtually. That's what inspired like the hybrid format. So that's another way we sort of began to adapt and work during COVID, like taking advantage of all the new technology and all the new opportunities to rethink like how we connect with each other and how we do our events to make them more accessible to people everywhere.
That's so lovely. And I love that you were able to do a hybrid event. I love that. So creative. I haven't actually heard of that happening before. So I love that you come up with that idea. And I look forward to seeing what amazing things you guys can do when COVID restrictions actually ease. That was amazing. This is a bit of an upside, but what has been your favorite opportunity so far?
I'd say our favorite opportunity was definitely planning the summit because we were basically meeting every Saturday, and as we were getting closer to the day of the summit, it was actually getting more intense. And what we learned is that sometimes you're not necessarily going to get everything. So, of course, the first budget you put together and everything is a wish list. But then at the end, we ended up working with what we had, and it still turned out great. And what was fun was that we actually became such good friends because you're constantly meeting. And what we saw that was interesting is because with most events we've seen, the closer to the day, the more people start arguing and falling out. But for some reason with us, it just brought us tighter because everyone was doing what they were supposed to be doing. There was no arguing. Everyone was being on time. So I'd say planning the summit was the most fun, and attending it was even more fun because we got to see what people are learning. And a lot of people actually said they came out and had learned a lot. And that also made us feel a lot better because people are going home into their communities and they're going to spread the word. So you've changed a few people, and by that, it's going to create a much bigger impact.
That sounds amazing. And I also love that you guys were able to, get people to empower their communities after you empowering them. It's kind of like a chain of events. I love that. Kind of on the flip side, you guys talked about COVID and how that has been both a challenge, but also kind of the thing that prompted you guys to start your projects. What has been some other challenges that you guys have faced, and what did you guys learn from them?
well, the first challenge I think we already discussed earlier. Of course, managing a campaign in school became extremely challenging at some point because, like, you have both of these things that are supposed to be major priorities, and it's really hard to pick something to focus on. So, overcoming this challenge basically required us to learn how to prioritize and to, of course, expand our team. So, like, for example, when we were doing the Namlolwe Youth Summit, we started out as a team of 4 people, Jeremy and I, and then Diego and Sarah from Green Speaking. But at some point, we sort of realized that, we can't do this ourselves anymore because Diego and Sarah also had school, and we decided to bring in Swapnil. Actually, Diego brought in Swapnil, Gitanshi, Sana, Manat from India, and it actually made things move a lot faster. So I think that overcoming the challenge of school basically deals with learning to prioritize, and I prioritize actually using deadlines, like what is due now, what is due next week, what is due in the next month. So based on that, you start picking, like, I can work on this now, and then because this is due in the next month, I can work on this maybe over the weekend or later on because I still have a bit of time. And then since this is due in 2 weeks, basically it gives you a sort of timeline to work with. And then, of course, getting a team, because it makes it a lot easier when you can ask someone to do something for you and you can actually rely on them to do it. It actually gets your projects moving way faster. So you're prioritizing, and of course, get a team, even if it's just your friends and stuff. It's really, really helpful. And maybe another challenge that we've actually experienced is being taken seriously as young people. I think Jeremy mentioned it earlier on, because when you're 16 and you're 14, people hear you talking about stuff, and it's really hard for them to, like, connect that this is actually real. This is them doing this project. This is a real issue and stuff. So overcoming this challenge basically required us to get adult allies, and my mom has been a major adult ally, in the sense that whenever you walk into an office or you're walking to talk to a crowd, if people decide they're not listening to us, she can get their attention and then say, like, now this is their project, listen to what they have to say. So that has become really helpful, because as an adult, she has more credibility. So when she says that this is what they're doing and I've personally been changed by it, then more people are likely to say, like, okay, then they're doing something serious, they're doing something real. And another way we overcame this challenge is actually just showing, like, what young people could do. The Namlolwe Youth Summit had an all-teen organizing committee. So when adults saw that we had actually done that, especially the adults that were giving us technical support, they were amazed, because they began to realize that your age doesn't define the quality of the work you do. You could be 16, you could be 30 years old and still write, like, killer proposals, still be able to do proper event planning, proper coordination. So I think those were two really helpful things that have helped us overcome the challenge of being looked at as a young person, adult allies, and then, of course, letting the quality of your work show people that you're serious about what you're doing and you can do it.
Amazing advice. I know that's going to help everyone watching. And I loved how you touched on, how age doesn't hold you back and it's not a restriction. And honestly, anyone of all ages can do amazing things just like you two. So unfortunately, this is actually our last question, but how powerful do you believe the voices of young change makers are, and what advice would you give aspiring change makers like you two?
I would say that the voice of young change makers is about as powerful as you believe your voice is, because I'd say don't listen to what other people say. And as many people that there are that are going to put you down, there's always going to be that one person who's going to believe in you. So you should try learn to block out all the negative energy, because your voice is powerful and you are doing what other people aren't doing right now, which alone makes you like a superhero. And a piece of advice I'd give is try to find a little bit of help and try to stay around people who encourage you. And another thing that you should always try to avoid is getting depressed by the very problem you're trying to solve. You should always maybe take a day off or something just to cool down, basically a self-help day. Because if you're constantly working on it and you're constantly thinking about it, after some time you start to get overwhelmed and the very problem you're solving starts to depress you.
And another thing, actually building on Jeremy's point, is it also helps to like take your passion and put it into the project you're working on. So for example, like Jeremy took his passion for tech and put it into the campaign, and that's why we are building Ziwa Safi. That's basically how that has come about. So it's way more fun to do something when you're actually enjoying what you're doing. So like take your interest. I mean, you don't even have to start a whole project, but just look at yourself. You see you have a problem in your community. Look at yourself and think like, what can I do? Am I good at getting people together to learn about an issue? Am I good at doing graphics on social media? Am I good at writing things? Can I do like opinion pieces in newspapers and stuff? Basically take what you really like to do, like what makes you get up every morning and smile, and then try using it to solve that problem, because then when you're doing that, it actually becomes like really fun. I mean, I think Jeremy enjoys doing Ziwa Safi more than anything else because it's his passion for tech and he's applying it to what he's doing. And you know, for me, of course, it's public speaking and it's understanding how systems work. So every time I get to the root of a problem, you know, I get really excited because I'm like, so if we address this, then we'll have basically started addressing the whole problem in the long term. So just that systems thinking excites me. So yeah, find what you actually love to do and apply it to that. Because if you do a project and you've taken on a role that you hate or that you really can't handle, then it becomes more like work. And when you're doing a long-term project, you don't want to keep thinking about it as work. And with that being said, I also think that your campaign shouldn't be like your whole life. As Jeremy said, you need some self-help, some time for self-care. You can't have you can't have your campaign or your project on your mind day, night, weekends, 365 days a year. It's not sustainable. So it shouldn't become like your identity or the only thing that you do. I mean, put yourself into that project, yes, but make sure there's still are you there. So like there's Michelle and then there's Bring Back Lake Victoria. So you're working on that, but you still have the ability to like unwind and say, I can still work on music, I can still work on schooling, I can still work on anything else I'm interested in, you know, maybe architecture or knitting or stuff. So yeah.
Lovely. Thank you two so much. I definitely was inspired by this interview, and I know people that will watch this video when it's posted will definitely also find your advice and your experiences very helpful. You two are so eloquent and so good at speaking, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.